1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for selfish, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Work hard and we shine, commitment, dedication. Neurosurgery, comedy, music, Nollywood. SOTK, Dr. Call, MC Casino. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Great Uniben, great Uniben, great Uniben.
Is the Uniben alumni series. And as you know, this is a show where we promote and celebrate alumni of the great University of Benin, one of the greatest tertiary institutions in West Africa. And on today's episode, we have an academic with us. He's an associate professor in the Department of Foreign Languages of the University of Benin. He specializes in Francophone Caribbean literature is Dr. Terry Osawaru. He's the former HOD of the Department of Foreign Languages, the immediate past HOD, actually. Thank you very much, Dr. Osawaru, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, my good friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for creating time to be part of the show. Sir, I've been wanting to ask this, but it will be shocking or it will be surprising to me if you intended to study foreign languages at the University of Benin. Was that what you applied for when you did your JAM to go into the institution?
It's like you intended it to be this way for us to start off this way.
Yes,
I was initially saying that I find it difficult to laugh. That question made me to laugh. But it's a very good question anyway. I didn't have the intention at all to study foreign languages, French in this case.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. In fact, I didn't even know they study French at the university level at the University of Benin. It was just by chance. I had wanted to study law.
Okay.
On the second note, I had wanted to study international studies and diplomacy, but I suspect that my score for the entrance exam, JAM, wasn't high enough, and so I was offered foreign languages, French to be specific. And the funny thing is, I did not study French at all at the primary school or secondary school level. You know, to a very low extent, we have French in our primary schools, in our secondary schools, but I was not fortunate enough, I would like to say, to be in a school where French was being taught at the primary school level or at the secondary school level. So it was a new thing for me, meeting it at the university level. And thank God we are here today.
Yes, because you have gone on to do very well with French as a course.
We
When you had the admission into foreign languages, French, did you write JAM again, as most people do if they are offered courses they are not too comfortable with? Did you write JAM again, or did you have it at the back of your mind that it was just temporary, that you were going to leave the department?
It was a situation of love at first sight, if you would permit me that expression.
Okay.
It was like fish taking to water. And so I did not even have that thought whatsoever to write JAM a second time or try to switch course even after getting admission to study French. Because of the process, I was 6 weeks late. Lectures had started. I think it was the week we did our matriculation. that I started lectures. And so my classmates had done like 4 or 5 weeks of lectures before I came. But immediately I started classes, I was excited at the
Mhm.
prospect of studying French. And then the
What
way,
if I will butt in here, what made you excited? But like you said earlier, you never had
yeah,
French in secondary school or any other earlier education. But this time, this is the first time, and you said it was more like love at first sight. What made you excited with French, a foreign language?
yeah, yes, like I said earlier, lectures were already ongoing when I came in for the first time to the department. And I remember the first lecturer I met in class. She's a professor now, Professor Mrs. Stella Onome Omonigo. And then I came into the class, and the first thing she asked me was one question in French. And they were doing composition writing in French at a very elementary level.
Hmm.
And so she asked, if you are asked to describe your village, what would be the first thing you would say? I was lost. I didn't know what it was. My first time in what we consider a higher institution. I didn't do diploma or anything. And so I was lost. I was looking at her. She said, say something. And I said, I will say the location of the village. She said, no, you are not intelligent. You say the name of the village first. And so because I was coded constructively, it aroused that passion in me to say I must be able to do better. And then the way French is taught in my department, we start from the basics, from 1, 2, 3 in French, un, deux, trois, quatre, and then we take it from A, B, C, D's, and then you move on. We move on to the level of IT, eat, for example, UP, O, and on, those kind
So,
of basic
so
things in
that will
French.
really help those that had no elementary understanding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the department considers everybody in that 100 level to be JJCs, if you would wish, that you do not know anything about French. Even if you previously did French to a very high level, you
Yeah,
are considered that as knowing nothing in French, because we need to take everybody along,
yeah.
and so we start from the scratch. And so the prospect of having to say some basic things in French was exciting, and that's where the excitement came from. Having to say Je m'appelle, we have been playing Awilo songs over and over again without actually knowing what he
Without
was
any
saying. And so
meaning.
with that prospect of knowing some few things that Willow said in his songs, Comment tu t'appelles, Je m'appelle, so it really gave us that motivation, that excitement to want to move ahead with the study of the language.
Okay. From the part of the world where we are from, our parents, they have a bit of influence when it comes to our courses or our educational life. What was the reaction of your parents when they found out you're going to study French in school?
Okay, Kelvin, I think you are a bigger journalist now. The questions you are asking, they are just straight to the
Because
point. I remember, I remember the time of course, my parents are not educated, but I thank God that they can read and write.
yeah,
Especially my dad. But my mom has more enthusiasm about reading and writing, so to some extent she can flow. And so she didn't even care. My mom did not even care, provided I had gotten admission, and she was excited the day of matriculation and all that. But my dad, of course, he was the one paying the little money he could pay for my education at that time. And the first question he asked, "What are you going to do with French?" Of course, at that time, I did not know how to answer that question, but I just knew that there was something in for me. And I just said, people are there. I'm not the only one in class. Luckily, that time, we were up to 100 in class. But
whoa,
because of the dedication of the lecturers, because of the dedication, and I'm not saying that because I'm there now, French department in the University of Benin is one of the foremost departments across universities in Nigeria and beyond. And when we take our students outside for language immersion, that testimony always comes in positive, year in, year out, with the different sets of students that we take out. And so the lecturers were dedicated enough, and the class was split into two, to serve the purpose more of a language class instead of having 100 students in one class. So we had 100 level A and 100 level B.
oh,
Lecturers rededicated themselves. You teach one thing to level A, to class A, you teach it to class B. And so I was in class A. So I told my dad that we were very many in class. I'm not the only one there. So if you think I'm doing the wrong thing, it means that 100 of us were doing the wrong thing. And it means that the lecturers teaching us are taking us the wrong path. But of course, that was not the case at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah. I would like to echo what your dad asked, especially maybe towards penultimate years, maybe when you're in your third year. What was the plan after graduation with your French degree? What was that thought? Was it you wanted to become a translator, or have you ever thought, oh, I want to go into lecture, I want to go into academic? What was your plan as a student?
Yes. For French, the way French learning is structured at the Department of Foreign Languages, Faculty of Arts, University of Benin, is done in a way that there are different levels that we take the students through, and that I was taking through as a student in my time. And that is, for 200 level, we start reading simplified literature texts, like little novels. I wanted to say roman in French, we call it, but novels in English. And so we were given a lot of novels to read, maybe like 4 or 5 pages, like this novel that many of us know, those of us in the literary world, The African Child by Kamara Lai, African Child.
Yeah.
In the French version is L'Enfant Noir. And so we'll be given like the first 4 or 5 pages to read. Of course, you always be with your dictionary. And so I would always come out, take a chair and a table outside my dad's house, and I'll be reading, and my mom will be passing. Sometimes she wants me to do something for her. I tell her that no, I'm reading, I'm studying. She'll say, okay, professor, not vessel, sorry. Actually, she started calling me professor from my first semester of 200 level. Perhaps she was prophesying, perhaps God was just saying something through her. But then that consciousness started, having a big place in me to say that I wanted to be a lecturer right from 200 level. But of course, there are a lot of opportunities that are there for French graduates. The first thing you must do is that you must take the study of the language seriously. You must come out with good grades at the end. And good grades, you can have a first class, you can have a 2-1 second class upper. If you are not so lucky, you can have a second class lower. It doesn't take anything away from you, provided you can express yourself to an appreciable level using the language, using the French language. And that gives you that advantage. So you can work as a translator, you can work as an interpreter, you can work in multinational companies. I have some of my ex-students who currently are working in France, in Cotonou, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abuja. One of my students is currently serving in Foreign Affairs Ministry in Nigeria. He was a lecturer with us for 3 years, and then he took up the job with the Foreign Affairs Ministry. He served in Russia. I think now he's in the US. So there are different opportunities open to the French graduate, to a French graduate, provided you know what you actually studied in school and not just to go and fill up the numbers. And also, you permit me to add this. There was a set, I think up to they graduated 10, 11 years ago now. When they were in 100 level, there was a classmate of theirs who has that, I think the dad has that military connection. And so the boy, when they were entering 200 level, the boy left the department, left the university, and went to start off with their military training in their school. And so they went through 4 or 5 years of military training to become an officer in the army. And so when he was about graduating, he now reached out to his classmates back in the department who had graduated at that time. And so those ones came into direct short service into the Air Force, to the Air Force precisely. So currently now, 4 of them were enlisted and they came out in flying colors. In fact, one of them made it first class. And he was the second best graduating student in his time when they were passing out. I think they call it passing out parade. The then chief of the air staff from Bauchi State, Air Vice Marshal or Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, actually commended him for doing very well because he was second best graduating student in the Air Force that year. I think they are now flying officers. I don't know what they call them. but
mm,
the equivalent of a captain in the army, you know.
mm,
So they are doing very well. And on passing out parade, the chief of air staff at that time, according to that my student, told them that if there are more French graduates who did very well, that they should encourage them to get enlisted in the Air Force. So there are a lot of opportunities for French graduates in Nigeria across the world. And they
mm.
can work virtually anywhere. You can be recruited by any bank, by Eco Bank or by Access Bank. They have branches across West African countries. And then they retrain you, because basically these days you get a job. Even if you study accounting or you study business administration, there's always what good companies, what they call retraining on the job. So
Yeah.
if you are a fresh graduate, your mind is open, you are an intellectual, you are ready to learn. And so they retrain you and take you to that choice area they want you to go to serve their own purpose, to represent them. And it could be a French country. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of them currently, if you permit me to quickly add, who are undergoing their PhD degrees in the US, in the UK, and then in France. The opportunity they have is that they are studying there for the PhD on scholarship. That's my ex-students on
Yeah.
scholarship. The program, they teach the first degree student, because they already completed their masters back here in Nigeria. They teach first degree students within the same university, and then they are put on scholarship for the PhD within the same university. And then they are paid at the end of the day, at the end of the month, to be able to keep body and soul together. And they have a lot of opportunities open for them thereafter. So being a French graduate doesn't take anything away from you. Instead, it gives you an advantage compared to other graduates from other disciplines.
Definitely, these testimonies are really encouraging, and maybe one day I might just dust my books and said, "Okay, let me go study French." Thank you, Dr. Terry.
We'll be very happy to have you. Anywhere you decide to study around the world, we'll be very happy.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk about your specialty. You went ahead to specialize in Francophone Caribbean literature. What influenced,
Yes.
what inspired that?
Yes. It was at the beginning of my final year during my first degree that my project supervisor, then now Professor Mrs. Ngozi Ilu, asked me what I was interested in doing. A lot of areas were open to us to write our project on. We had translation, we had language and linguistics, we had grammar, we had literature, we had culture and civilization. And so I had always had this thing for literature. And so I preferred literature. And then she told me to get a novel, any novel whatsoever. And then we have African literature, we have French literature, we have Caribbean literature, all francophones. And so I wasn't looking out particularly for anyone. I went to the departmental library, and as God will have it, the novel I selected was a novel called La Lizard, written in 1958 by the renowned Martinican writer Edward Glisson. And so I took the novel to my supervisor, and then she screamed to say, this is Caribbean literature novel, and the literature is somehow complex, somehow difficult. You would need the help of Professor Mokwenye. Professor Mokwenye is a foremost critic and specialist of Francophone Caribbean literature, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa too. And I was lucky enough to have him in our department at that time. So Madam Milo was supervising me with that novel, and then I was getting some books from Professor Mokwenye. And those books were gradually drifting me into the world of Caribbean literature. And
Okay.
little wonder, when I concluded my first degree program and I came back for my master's, I wanted to continue along that line of Francophone Caribbean literature. And for your information, Francophone Caribbean literature is a literature that has to do with the little islands of Martinique and Guadeloupe. We used to have Haiti. Haiti is independent now, got independence in 1804. We have some other islands, but the two major islands that there are Martinique and Guadeloupe, you know. And it's from there that this negritude thing was made popular from the writers of these islands. And
Mm.
so that is it.
Yeah. Still talking about your research. How do you think your research contributes to deeper understanding of the Caribbean cultures and their society?
Yes. Firstly, the Francophone Caribbean people, they are they can be seen or regarded as an offshoot of Africa, of Africans, because long ago their forefathers were forcefully taken from Africa and then sold into slavery. And so their forefathers were taken to the New World. They used to call it the New World. In the English-speaking aspect, we had I think Jamaica. In
Mm,
the Spanish-speaking aspect, we have some other islands. But for French, we had Martinique and Guadeloupe and then Guyana. And so they still have this relationship, this communication with the mother continent, with Africa. And so I decided to perceive or to structure my research around that their connection, that the African connection.
yeah.
And the best way I could do that at the beginning was to study them through the renowned Martinican writer Aimé Césaire. Aimé Césaire. He was a very good friend of the former president of Senegal, Leopold Sedar Senghor. We may know Leopold Sedar Senghor for those of us maybe in politics or in the
Mm,
literary world. Yes, and so that the African connection, even with many hundreds of years after the abolition of slave trade, is still there. It may not be as strong as it used to be, as
yeah.
many Africans wish it to be, but it's still there. And so my intention, my research is centered around, seeing possible ways that relationship can blossom, can be better than how it is now. And little wonder, I have some friends in Guadeloupe and Martinique, some research partners and collaborators in those islands. And so my research work is structured, is centered around that perspective in making the relationship between Africa and the French Caribbeans to be more felt.
Yeah. You just mentioned collaboration with other scholars. How do you think these collaborations, international collaborations, can enhance research and teaching in Nigerian universities?
Of course, yes, it's actually needed to enhance teaching and research and scholarship in in Nigerian universities. And one of such ways is, for example, I'm a member of the Society for Caribbean Studies.
Okay.
Society for Caribbean Studies, yes. It's we had our annual meeting at the Goldsmith University of London in May last year, and fortunately, I was privileged enough to attend and met scholars from around the world, from the US, from Australia, and the likes. And so I was able, representing my university, that is University of Benin, I was able to do some linkages, some collaborative works with some researchers, some scholars in the field from other universities. Foremost amongst them is Université Paris 8. That's Paris University 8. They label their universities by numbers because it's a very large university. They have University 1, University 2, University. So I have that collaboration with one Professor Patio, Sivan Patio, who I think the last time we spoke, of course, I got to know him before last year, we were to have a collaboration and to attend a conference together in the US. But that was COVID-19 era, and then it actually distorted that effort at that time. We're still looking at having a paper written together, a quality paper, research paper that can help French Caribbean studies back in Africa. And they are also fascinated. It's a win-win thing. It's not just that they are going to help us, we're also helping them. They need to see the French Caribbeans through our own eyes because they believe that we know them better. The color of our skin is almost the same thing with the color of their skin, the French Caribbeans now, the Caribbean people. And so the white people also want to have partnership with us in trying to understand their peculiarities and their realities more than ever before. The only thing now is, of course, there are a lot of complexities around the literature. The major problem, I would say, is that we had French assimilation in Africa, although at the end of the day did not succeed, but it succeeded with the French Caribbean people in that they are now French citizens, full-fledged French citizens. When they are voting in France, they vote in Guadeloupe and they vote in Martinique, and their votes count. And so the way they see themselves as Africans is gradually diminishing. And so our research work is geared towards that angle. And of course, with the more we continue to interface with our foreign collaborators, the more we have that feeling and we have that assurance that that our universities are not left behind. I remember when I was making contributions at the conference in London last year, I was proud enough to say that I'm from University of Benin, Benin City, Nigeria. And to be fair to you and to be plain and objective, they did not sound as if they didn't know about University of Benin. It means other researchers, other scholars over the years have made University of Benin very popular. And so the name did not sound strange to them. In fact, it was my own name as a person that sounded strange, of course. And then they were surprised at the level of understanding that I have about the literature. These preconceived ideas that Africans, are not as gifted, are not as talented as they are. So each time we have the opportunity to interface with them, we quickly throw that into the dustbin of history and to tell them that we can compete on the same level, if not better. So that's it.
Yeah. You mentioned working with French scholars as well. And even you studied in France, so you got this education from the institution. But how have these international experiences shaped your perspective on teaching and research? Your own personal experience, how has it shaped your perspective on teaching?
Please, can you take that question again? How has my international experience?
Your international experiences, how has it shaped your perspective on teaching?
Yes. Okay. Firstly, it gives you that confidence when teaching. I would not say it's forbidding, but it doesn't sound well to be a lecturer of the French language for almost 2 decades and you haven't visited France for academic purposes. You haven't visited some renowned francophone countries in Africa, for academic purposes, not tourism now, So having had the privilege to achieve that, to do that, it gives you that confidence when you are teaching, and it's a motivational factor to your students, when they get that aura that their lecturer knows what he or she is talking about, and that their lecturer has attended conferences, has attended further training courses, in those Western countries. Not just because we rate them to be above us or we want them to validate us, but because the world is a global village.
Yeah.
In fact, university, the term university comes from universal. It must be generally known worldwide. And so we're not instead seeking for their validation. We are instead seeking that collaboration.
Yeah.
And so my experiences, in the UK and in France, because the very first time I visited France was on French government scholarship. And I'm still very grateful to them. And it was for a training, a refresher course. And I learned a lot. One of the things I learned, if you permit me,
Yeah, go ahead.
is that France, as the owner of the French language, one of the things they teach in terms of language learning is that if you set out to mark the answer and not the grammar, you do that. If you set out to mark the grammar and not the answer, for example, there are a lot of courses. There's a course for grammar, there's a course for literature. If you ask a student at the exam to say, maybe in French, who is the current president of Nigeria, and maybe in answering in English, I'll use English now for the benefit of our audience, and the person writes, the president is Nigeria was Tinubu, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Even when the language is faulty, the answer of the name of president is correct.
Yes, yeah.
You may now wish to say over 10, you score the person 5 or 6.
Okay.
So that's my training course in France gave me that perspective that we do not mark what we did not set out to test the student on.
Okay.
I don't know if you get it.
Yeah.
You do not mark, you do not penalize the student for what you did not set out to test the student on. What you ask is or was if the student knows the name of the president. So the way he or she arrives at providing the name is less important than the answer itself. And so I got that as well. And one of the things I also got from those courses, my experiences abroad, is that we are too hard on ourselves as academics from this part of the world. We are too quick to relegate things that are ours in preference for things that come from the West. I'll give you an example. The lecturers that were taking us on those courses in France, that was in, I think in 2019, the best of them had just a master's degree. At that time, I was already a PhD holder. I got my PhD in 2017. And so when lecturing us one day, teaching us one day, she ventured into the world of Caribbean literature. She was doing literature in general, and she ventured into my own world, I would say. And she mentioned this novel, I answer her. She mentions this novel, I answer her. And then she was shocked and she asked the question, what relationship do you have with Caribbean literature, French Caribbean literature? And I answered her sweetly. And I gave her more novels. And then she quickly confessed that she was about defending her master's project the following week or 2 weeks time from that very day. And so she was, even when her language was impeccable, her expression, her usage of the French language was how it should be. And I was, a little beneath her in terms of the language, the language is theirs. But she recognized content, and that content is different from expression. And so we should take advantage of our strength in Nigeria. I'm talking to Nigerian academics now.
Yeah.
We should take advantage of those things that make us who we are, those things that positively define us, and not to be completely hard on ourselves. There are a lot of areas where we are better than the people we want to look like. A lot of areas, Yes, we need their collaboration, but we should not be completely hard on ourselves.
Okay, sir. My next question is this: is there a significant difference between your time as a student and now? I'm talking about the academic culture. Is there a significant difference between your time as a student and now as a lecturer?
Yes, a whole lot of difference. My perspective now is different from when I was doing my first degree, and I'll quickly give you some examples. When I was doing my first degree, I didn't know much. Now I know better in terms of the content of my field of study. And I also want to quickly acknowledge in all modesty that I still have a lot to learn.
Yes, please, I would like you to anchor more on from the student perspective. Do you think that the students, when you were a student, if it was better or it is better now for the students?
I would say that it was better then, to be honest. I would
Okay.
say it was better
So
then.
what were those
And
things that you feel were easily accessible for you then as a student than the students than the current students now? Those are those academic
then,
privileges or
yeah. And when I say it was better then compared to now, the academic culture was better then. The get it at all costs syndrome was not as bad as it is now compared to that time. That time, the fact that you have gotten admission into the university does not mean that you will graduate. If your grades are not good enough, you may be asked to withdraw from the university. In fact, we had different we have many students. We had many students, each graduating year who are not able to graduate for for their own fault. They are not able to meet up with the required number of credits that they've accumulated. And what I'm trying to explain by that is that the standard was very high. Now you get parents coming to beg, oh, just let him go, just let her go, as if we are the ones holding the person back. And then the social media was not this disruptive, was not this distractive and time consuming. In 100 level, when I was in 100 level, not so long ago anyway, to be frank, but I didn't know about Facebook. I don't know whether Facebook had started that time. I doubt. I didn't know about Facebook. In 100 level, I didn't even have a phone. I didn't even have this handset. We had this Nokia touchlight that time. It wasn't even so common. And so we we were going to the cyber cafes that time, not even as final year students, in 200 level. And when we're doing our language immersion program at the Nigerian French Language Village in Badagry, the lecturers come to class and gives you assignment and gives you like 10-20% of what you need and tells you to go to the internet. And then our phones were not this gifted that time. Those of us, few of us who had phones, was just touchlight phone. And so you need to go to the cyber cafes where we had them. We had a lot of them that time. You pay for it. And because you have paid for that time, you are dedicated to what you want to achieve. It's not now that 24 hours of the day, some students are on their phones, and instead of doing something academic, they are not doing so. But the other part where I said it was better then compared to now, I laid the fault on the doorstep of the government, of Nigerian government. We had a lot, when I was in 100 level, we had a lot of young lecturers who we could easily relate with, who would easily understand what our challenges were. But now, I tell you, Nigerian universities have not been able to employ lecturers or non-teaching staff for about 8 to 10 years now. And so if you go to most universities, you hardly find lecturers in the lower cadre. You find most of them that are L1, senior lecturers, associate professors, and professors. And so their realities, the way they want to
friend from the students?
care for, the way they want to pay attention to us as freshers, as beginners, not
Yeah.
for other courses, but for French, that we need that close attention at the beginning, is not as it used to be. When I was in 100 level, the attention was very close and was very concentrated, was focused on us. And we also had recent books in the library, in our libraries. We had a departmental library, we had a school library, journalist library. And so we had recent books at that time. We could have, say, about 50, 100 copies of the same book. Sometimes those books are donated by the French embassy of the same book. And so when the lecturer is teaching, each student has a copy of that book, even when the book is not actually our own. When you finish, you return it to the library. But now things are not the same. The French government is also complaining that the economy is bad. That the economy is bad. Nigerian government is complaining the same thing. And so I would say education when I was a first degree student is better than now. It's
Okay.
better than now.
We are gradually coming to the end of this interview, sir. You have been in the University of Benin for more than 2 decades as a student and as an academic, and yeah, as a lecturer. What are the attributes you have taken from the institution? What are the things that you said, oh, Uniben taught me this, Uniben taught me that?
I would say Uniben taught me to be more focused in life. Before I came in, I had that impression of, oh, I'll just go abroad, either follow the Libyan route or something. But then Uniben has taught me that there's a step to everything. There are different stages in life. If God promotes you from stage 2 to stage 5, you know it's by grace. But
Yeah,
if not, move from 2 to 3, move from 3 to 4. I attended a conference quickly long ago where one of our professors who was about retiring that time said that in fact the state that hosted that conference that year, that was the last of the 36 states he was visiting, that he had previously visited 35 states in Nigeria. And he was advising us that we the young ones should not be in a hurry to accomplish that it takes time. You know, petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid. Little drops of water makes a mighty ocean. So Uniben has also taught me patience. Uniben has taught me that if you are diligent in what you do, even if you are at the backyard of your house, you'll be located for something good. Diligence, patience, and to be focused, to be determined. The realities may be harsh, may not be favorable,
yeah,
but firstly, you pray to God. On the second note, you must be focused. And Uniben has taught us that. While I was doing my convocation, first degree convocation, Oga Kelvin, at the main auditorium, I think Professor EAC Wanze was vice chancellor at that time, you know. And then there was one young man. They merged 2 sets for convocation that year. The man was in the first set, I was in the second set. So he was from Faculty of Education. And then when they say this award, they call him. When they call this award, they call him. They call this other award, they call him. And then the vice chancellor stood up because the boy made the first class. And then the vice chancellor stood up and asked, I'm impressed by this young man's academic accomplishments. Are your parents around? And the boy said yes. I think the dad had died at that time. It was the mom that came, and the mom was in the crowd. And so the vice chancellor requested that the mom be brought, you know, to the high table where they can all see her. And the mom stood by her son. You could see, with all due respect to them, you could see the level they were coming from, the economic level. She was not the type you qualify to be rich. I don't want to describe her in a way that belittles her, but you could see that she had brought up her son in the right way, and she has coached her son to do marvelously well in his studies. And so the VC called and beckoned on the other deputy vice chancellors, the deans that were around to
yeah,
take a group photograph of that young man and his mother. The mother was very proud, and the mother was hugging the young man, hugging the son. In front of me, ironically, it would be like a joke, but it's not. One woman, gorgeously dressed, was sitting in front of me in the crowd. And then the woman said, ah, my son is in the car. He was one that drove us here. He's like a driver. You should come and see what his mate has done with education, that they are celebrating him. And then I knew that success has many parents. And when you are successful, people are proud of you. And so it gave me, Uniben has taught me that reading culture, that culture to always be successful in whatever you do, wherever you find yourself, that you must always try to be number one. You are not competing with any other. If it's competition, it must be healthy rivalry.
yeah.
There's also healthy rivalry, to be the best in whatever you do. And Uniben is a place where you have that mentality instilled in you, that form of discipline. And little wonder we call it Unibest.
Thank you very much. Before I conclude, finally, you just mentioned the education and graduate that made it first class. Has there ever been a first class from the Department of Foreign Languages?
Yes, yes, we have had. I didn't make a first class. I made a 2-1.
Yeah.
You know, I was lucky to get the job, and they have grown on the job.
Uh,
The
uh,
year,
how
those
easy it is or how difficult it is to make it, because these are one of the departments
it
I
is,
personally know it is quite difficult. It is quite difficult to make a
we,
first class.
there are some specs. Since I became a lecturer, the graduating year where we have had first class is more than the year we didn't have any. And there are some years we have like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
In fact, when we present our results at the faculty board level, we find colleagues from other departments wondering how we are able to get 3, 4, 5 first class students.
Yeah.
And then we quickly explain that this department, the final year courses, are taken by professors of high repute. And then a student who is seen to have made a first class must have gone through tutelage of those different professors. And we quickly sometimes display letters of commendation coming from Nigerian French Language Village. Mind you, the Nigerian French Language Village is a language immersion center established by the federal government in 1991. They have specialized lecturers here. And every student studying French in Nigeria, across all Nigerian universities, come here for their language immersion at the 300 level. And so French Village has always sent us commendation letters to the Department of Foreign Languages, Uniben,
Yeah.
to praise us for the level of academic prowess that our students display while they are here, and that they rate them far better than, with due respect, many other university students who come for the same program. In fact, it's this department or the school that is on the same level with us, you would want to mention the University of Ibadan and then the University of Lagos. It's always first, second, third for Uniben. These days it's first or second, first or second. And so our students do well, and those who do marvelously well end up making a first class. So, but there are sometimes some graduating year we do not have any, but we do have first class from time.
It's encouraging to hear. It's encouraging to
Yeah.
hear.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you for creating
Thank you
time
for having me.
to be with
Thank you
us.
for having me.
Yeah, I've been speaking with Dr. Terry Agboyosa Osawaru. He's an associate professor in the Department of Foreign Languages, University of Benin, and he's the immediate past head of department of that department. Continue to subscribe to our channel, so we'll bring you more exclusive interviews. Bye for now.
1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for service, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law.